I'm getting closer to my 30th birthday, so I decided to copy Lavendaire, who basically did the story of her 20s. And I also wanted to talk about my 20s experience and how it has shaped me as a woman. So let's get started. Make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you like and you share. 2011, I was in Bloomfield College. I was 20 years old and I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I wasn't confident in myself just yet, so I just remained undeclared as a major, and I was like really angry and prude, and I just kind of had like low self-esteem. I didn't really find myself to be attractive. I struggled with identity and knowing exactly who I was. I then later transferred from Bloomfield College to Queens College. I also met my brothers and sisters for the first time this year. So that was very life-changing. But yeah, let's move on to 2012. I don't really remember too much about being 20 years old. I just know that I was 2012. I went on my very first adult trip to Montreal, Canada. I loved Montreal so much, and I think that this was what really sparked my love for travel. But I always thought to myself that I couldn't do it because I was too broke to do it. And now when I think about it, there was always an excuse for why I couldn't do something. And I think that was something that I really wanted to change about myself. 22 years old, 2013, I was working at a store like that was really famous called American Apparel. They're no longer around, but I became an American Apparel associate. Then I became backstock, and I basically did retail for most of my early 20s. But what I will say is I did all of this while I was at Queens College, and it was a little bit rough, I'm not gonna lie. I lived in Queens, I lived in Corona and East Elmhurst, and it was pretty rough. It was not the greatest living conditions that I lived in, but I got it done, and I did what I had to do at the age of 22. At the age of 23, which was 2014, this was one of my roughest years. I was kicked out of the place that I was living at in Queens. It was a family friend that let me stay there. And that woman kicked me out. She was an older woman, and she just had her ways, and my ways just didn't mesh with hers, I guess. And she just wound up kicking me out. I had nowhere to go, so I had to go to my cousin's house in Far Rockaway. Although his house was a little bit crowded at the time, I did stay there for some time, but I just didn't feel comfortable staying and not being able to pay people. So I just made sure that I went somewhere else. I couldn't go back home to my mother's house. On a positive note, at age 23, I began to take like my dance career a little bit more serious. I think that was like my zen moment where I felt like I could connect through dance, and just, despite what's going on, despite me sleeping in offices, banks, you name it, I found love through dance. I will say sleeping on sofas and random places and stuff like that definitely took a toll on my body. I would not suggest that today at my age, and I'm not saying that I'm old, but I'm just saying like it definitely put a strain on my body, just walking around with a big old bag with all of my toiletries and everything in there. It was kind of rough, but through dance I definitely found myself to be more centered. I truly enjoyed dancing, and I enjoyed it so much that I wound up joining a dance group, and I did backup dancing for them and worked with various artists. Olotunji, who was a soca artist. It was mainly Caribbean music, so that was that. So by 2015, age 24, this would be my final year in college, and I was granted a dormitory stay for the remainder of my year. A friend of mine definitely helped me out to get that situated because I was still struggling to find somewhere to live. And on top of that, not being able to find a solid employment because of not being able to, take showers and stuff like that. on a regular. But yeah, they allowed me to stay on the dormitory there until graduation. I graduated in 2015 and moved to a new apartment in Brooklyn because I got a job. I was able to take showers and rest properly and get a job. So that was great. I graduated 2015 and moved into my new apartment in Brooklyn. I was so excited to finally have a place of my own and finally get a head start. Sadly, during this year of 2015, my dreams of becoming a backup dancer, because I always wanted to be a backup dancer, just seemed impossible for me at that time. I struggled with my own image, and I was losing weight rapidly and was trying any way to gain weight. I was let go of the dance group that I was in at the time, and everything just seemed like it was falling apart. Career-wise, everything. With the constant rejection and, just feeling down and constantly down on myself, I decided to create a theater production called Concrete Jungle Productions. So despite all of that going on, 2015, I founded my baby, Concrete Jungle Productions Incorporated. And by the age of 25, I then released my season premiere of Concrete Jungle Choreographer Showcase Season 1. I did that at the age of 25. I listed Concrete Jungle as an incorporation, and I was very happy for that. It's a foundation, yes it is, and I was very, very happy about that. But on the downside, I was really struggling relationship wise. I was failing in the relationship department really, really bad. I couldn't get into a healthy relationship to save my life. All of the relationships I would enter would be seriously toxic and unhealthy. It caused me a lot of trauma and a need for healing. That really shaped how I look at men today. I'm not gonna lie. That 25 year was definitely kind of rough as far as dating and how I look at men. My view on men definitely shifted. I definitely look at men differently now. And I think that it's okay that I look at them in that way. I don't look at them as scornful as I used to, or as bitter as I used to, but I definitely look at men a little bit different as an adult today, and that is definitely because of some of the trauma in 2016. It's so interesting because that same year I went to a santero and a lot more seriously, and I really started to delve in and I started to find guidance. And that santero said to me that I need to be dancing for the orishas. And we'll come right back to that reading, because I didn't listen to that reading back then, but that's okay. We're going to go on and skip to 2017. 2017, I was 26 years old. This was my favorite year, to be honest. I got into a relationship that was super healthy. I was genuinely happy, and I felt like I knew where I was going. I felt what I've been waiting to feel for years finally happened. I sadly moved back in with my mother. I lost the apartment in Brooklyn, and that deeply hurt. But however, for some reason, I found happiness. The healthy relationship did come to an end, and it did hurt, but not as much as the toxic relationships that I did have that prior year, 2015, 2016. And then that same year, I traveled to Rio de Janeiro for the first time. I had so much fun there, and that really sparked the travel in me. I really was like, all right, I'm going to travel more, and I want to see things. And seeing, traveling and seeing other cultures was like the desire that I had, and that was the highlight of my year. By the age of 27 in 2018, the year 2018 was the year I paraded in Rio de Janeiro Carnival for the first time with Imperial Serrano. That same year, I was so excited and inspired that I moved to Rio that same year. It was my first time living abroad, and I fell in love ever since. My time in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, really shaped me as a Black woman and changed my perspective on life. I became a passista for about 3 different schools: Imperial Serrano, Alegria da Zona Sul, and Unidos Padre Miguel, which I am still a pasista for today. I also became a dancer in the Makulele Ala, and I danced for Salguero that year as well. And those were like some of the best moments of my life, seriously. By 28 years old in 2019, we have another rough year. 2019 was an extremely rough year and a low year for me. The transition from Rio to NYC, I made the decision to come back to New York City. I was going to live in Rio because I felt like finance was just not working and I just wasn't able to get off my feet. And I just really wanted to rush the process. Like I really wanted to rush things. And that transition from Rio to NYC was extremely rough at the time. And at that time, I felt like I didn't have anyone that could understand what I was going through. I struggled financially, doing odd end jobs, doing extra work. I did a bunch of extra work. I worked on so many shows, Pose, The Hunt, oh my goodness, so many. It's too many to name. I did all those shows, getting like $200 checks, and those wasn't all the time. I probably did one once a week, so I probably was getting $200 a week, which was bad. I struggled with friendships, struggled with finance, and it was really hard to just be happy because I didn't want to be a burden on my mother, and she started asking, for like a little bit more money, even though I was unable to come up with my share because it just seemed like anything that I was trying was just was not working. I started to regret making the decision to come back to New York City. And so with that being said, I said, let me go back to Rio for Carnival and try to enjoy myself. While I was saving up for Rio and basically bought my flight, child, I got fired. I got fired from the job in the Bronx, and that really devastated me. But I said, I'm going to go to Rio anyway, although I was really broke. I was in Rio broke as fuck, but I didn't care because the year was rough and I just needed to get away. All right, 29 years old, 2020. I arrived in Rio de Janeiro December 2019 and brought in the new year with some friends of 2020, and I know it's the year everybody calls hell, but to be honest, 2020 was a very calm year for me. 2020 taught me to be still and wait and trust the process. I think that was something I truly struggled with throughout my 20s. I feel like I was always on the go. My entire 20s was constant go, go, go. It's got to get done now. I got to do it now or never. I'm running out of time. But being fired, being broke, and in the middle of the West Zone, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, forced me to stop. It forced me to stop. While most of the world began their shelter in place in March, mine actually began in February. And not because of coronavirus, but because I was broke. I stayed in the favela with my friends and family, and not friends and family. Well, they're my family now. They're my adopted family. My adopted family took great care of me, and I owe them so much. You could click the link above to watch the story about me and Iguinho. And you can also watch the other story about the favela reality when I was living there last year. They were literally my adopted family, and during this time alone, I had a lot to think about. I thought a lot. What can I do to make my life better? Step one was removing certain things from my life. It was in April 2020 that my life changed. Like seriously, it literally made a change. And not only that, I just felt like it started to align itself. I started teaching online. I started teaching dance classes online to children. And it truly makes me emotional because I always wanted to share my talents with people across the globe and not just in New York City. And I'm finally doing it. To know that so many children love my classes, Like seriously, it makes me feel honored, and it pushes me every day. I also teamed up with Nidra to create Community, an organization that we both co-founded, where we offer free dance classes to children in the 5 boroughs. So we organized a bunch of things throughout the year. We did end SARS informational, and we fed families in Astoria houses because they were without gas, and they still are. But 2020 showed me definitely to slow down. And honestly, it was what I deserved. I needed it. I needed to slow down and seriously let life take its course. I honestly can say my final year in my 20s is what I deserved and what I needed. I made it to be 30 years old. I never prepared myself to make it past 25. To be here right now as an educator, an international educator, a community advocate and activist, I am so grateful for all the accomplishments that I have made throughout my 20s. It was not easy. I didn't get a head start in life. I literally started from blood, sweat, and skills. I am confidently ready to step into my 30s with wisdom, love, appreciation, and prosperity. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Regine Bridges the Gap. I know it's a little bit different, but like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you around. Take care.